You're standing in a garden before sunrise. Your hands are shaking, not from cold, from what you just saw. 3 days ago, you watched the man who gave you back your life get nailed to a Roman cross. You heard the sound. You smelled the blood. You stayed when everyone else ran. You came to this garden this morning to say goodbye to a corpse. And now the tomb is empty. You're crying so hard you can barely see. You turn around, and through the blur of tears, you see a figure standing in the garden. You think he is the gardener. He says one word, your name. And in that single moment, one woman, one garden, one word, the entire course of human history changed forever. She became the first person in history to announce the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the first preacher of the Christian faith. And then she disappeared for 30 years. No letters, no mentions, no grabe. The most important witness in the most important moment in the history of the world's largest religion, simply gone until now, because what happened to Mary Magdalene after that garden is the story the church buried, the story the Gospels stopped telling, and the story that 30,000 women paid for with their freedom because nobody told them the truth. Stay with me, because nothing you think you know about this woman is going to survive the next 30 minutes. Part 1, who she really was, 1:45 to 7 o'clock. Before we follow her into the 30 years of silence, you need to understand who she actually was. Not who the church told you she was, who the historical record says she was. And those are two completely different women. Close your eyes again. It is before dawn in a stone house, near the Sea of Galilee. You are Mary. Your town is Magdala. The air smells of lamp oil, stone walls still holding the cold of night, and fish, always fish, because Magdala was not a village. In 2009, a construction crew hit stone, less than a foot below the surface, near the Sea of Galilee. They called the Israel Antiquities Authority. What they found was called the most significant archaeological discovery in Israel in 50 years. A first-century synagogue, one of the oldest ever found in Galilee. Inside it, mosaic floors, frescoed walls in reds and blues, and a carved stone block bearing one of the earliest known images of the seven-branch menorah from the Jerusalem temple, the Magdala stone. But the synagogue was just the beginning. Stone-paved streets, not dirt, cut stone, a marketplace for ritual baths fed by underground water systems, a harbor, fish processing pools that exported dried and salted sardines across the Roman Empire. And in 2021, a second synagogue, the first time two from this period have ever been found in a single town. This was not a backwater. This was a thriving commercial city that traded with Rome. And you, Mary of Magdala, came for means in this city. Luke chapter 8 verses 1 through 3 is the first time she appears by name in Scripture. And the detail most people skip past is this: she and the other women who followed Jesus provided for the ministry out of their own resources. She had money, she had independence, she had a life, and she had 7 demons. Now stop, because this is where the church got it wrong. For 14 centuries, and people paid for that mistake with their lives. 7 demons did not mean prostitution. The Bible never says that. Not once. Not anywhere. In the ancient world, demonic possession was the explanation for what we would today call severe mental illness, epilepsy, chronic physical suffering, a darkness behind your eyes that wouldn't leave no matter what you did. And 7 in Hebrew numerology, is the number of completeness. 7 demons meant there was nothing left of her that wasn't touched by this. She had wealth, she had a home, she had a city, and none of it could fix what was broken inside her, until the morning a rabbi from Nazareth stood near the Magdala stone, and she felt something shift, layer by layer, one by one, like a shadow being pushed out by a light that doesn't flicker, until there was silence, real silence, not exhaustion, not the gap between episodes, the silence of a room after the last person screaming has finally gone quiet. Her hands were still, her thoughts were her own. She looked up at the man by the stone. He was already looking at her, and the woman who had everything except peace walked out of Magdala and never came back. If you have spent your whole life hearing Mary Magdalene described as a prostitute, and nobody ever corrected that for you, then the least this channel deserves is a subscription, because somebody has to tell the truth when the institution won't. Hit subscribe. Stay with me, because what she did next is the part they really don't want you to know. She walked away from everything, past the marketplace, past the fish processing vats, past the harbor, past the last building in Magdala. She joined Joanna, wife of Herod's own steward, a woman giving up a connection to the royal court itself. She joined Susanna and others Luke doesn't even name. They walked with Jesus through Galilee, sleeping outside villages that wouldn't take them, eating barley bread and olives and dried fish from the same lake she had left behind. In first century Judea, a woman traveling without a husband invited stares and judgment from every direction. She didn't care. 3 years pass. Jerusalem, Friday afternoon. The sky has turned dark in the middle of the day. You are standing on Golgotha, the place of the skull. Bare rock, the smell of blood and vinegar. Roman soldiers who have done this so many times. They're gambling at the foot of the crosses. And the man in the middle, the one on the center cross, is the man who stood at the Magdala stone and gave you back your life. Mark chapter 15 puts her name first, among the women who were there, before the others. First, the 12 apostles, the men who had sworn they would never abandon him, were gone. Peter had denied knowing him 3 times. The others scattered like smoke, but Mary Magdalene stayed, close enough to see his ribs move, with every breath, close enough to hear the fluid building in his lungs, close enough to watch the moment his head dropped. One cry, loud, ragged, then nothing. A wealthy man named Joseph of Arimathea wrapped the body in linen and placed it in a tomb cut from rock. He rolled a stone across the entrance, and Mary watched. She memorized exactly which tomb, because she was coming back. The Sabbath prevented any movement, from Friday evening to Saturday evening. Jewish law prohibited all work, so there was nothing she could do, nowhere to go, nothing but wait and grieve and replay every image from that cross, again and again. On Saturday night, she prepared spices, myrrh, aloe, bundled in cloth. She was not going to the tomb on Sunday morning, expecting a miracle. She was going to say goodbye, the only way she still could. Sunday, before first light, Jerusalem still dark. She walks through empty streets, carrying spices, toward a sealed Roman tomb, with no plan for how to move the stone. Mark's gospel records the women asking each other, on the way, who will roll the stone away for us? They didn't have a solution. They went anyway. The stone was already rolled back. The tomb was open. She ran. She told Peter and John. They came, looked inside, saw the linen folded on the stone floor, and went home. But Mary stayed. She stood outside the tomb, weeping so hard she couldn't see clearly. She looked inside. 2 figures in white. "Woman, why are you weeping?" She turned around. A man standing in the garden. Through the blur of tears, she thought he was the groundskeeper. "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you put him, and I will get him." A woman offering to carry a dead man's body by herself through the streets of Jerusalem at dawn. That is who this woman was. And then he said her name, Mary, the same voice, the voice that pushed the darkness out of her. In a synagogue in a fishing city on the Sea of Galilee, she had heard it every day for 3 years. She would know it in a thunderstorm. "Rabboni, teacher, do not hold on to me. Go to my brothers and tell them." And she ran. She ran straight into a room full of frightened men and told them that the person they watched die on a Roman cross was alive, that she had spoken to him, that he had a message for them. Luke tells us directly, the apostles did not believe her. Their words seemed like nonsense. The future leaders of the Christian church, the men who would build a faith, now followed by over 2 billion people, were hiding in a locked room, and the person who brought them, the news that became the foundation of all of it, was Mary Magdalene. Here is what scholars note about the credibility of this account. In first-century Jewish law, a woman's testimony was not legally valid. A woman could not serve as a witness in court. If the early Christians had been fabricating this story, they never would have chosen a woman as the primary witness. It would have destroyed their credibility in the very culture they were trying to convince. The fact that all 4 Gospels independently name her as the first witness is one of the strongest arguments scholars make for the historical authenticity of the resurrection accounts. Nobody inventing this story would have written it this way, but then she vanishes. She was given the most important commission in human history. She delivered it, and then the New Testament never mentions her again. Not in the book of Acts, not in a single one of Paul's letters, not in any epistle, not anywhere. For a woman this central, that silence is not an accident. And what that silence is hiding is the part of this story nobody has ever fully told you. Think about what the silence actually means. The book of Acts mentions dozens of people by name. Paul's letters reference co-workers and missionaries in city after city. Priscilla, Phoebe, Lydia, Eunia, but the woman who announced the resurrection. Not one word. Some scholars argue this silence is itself the evidence that the early church, navigating the deeply patriarchal culture of the Roman Empire, deliberately minimized a prominent female leader as it sought institutional authority and respectability. That her name was not forgotten. It was managed. Others argue she simply lived quietly, and there was nothing dramatic to report. But here is what makes that argument collapse. In the 2nd and 3rd centuries, in texts that were not included in the Bible, Mary Magdalene does appear, and the picture those texts paint is not of a woman who faded quietly into retirement. It is of a woman at the center of a war. In 1945, a farmer in Upper Egypt was digging for fertilizer when a shovel hit a sealed clay jar buried in the ground. Inside, 13 leather-bound codices, over 50 texts, many of them lost for more than 1,500 years. and several of them contained information about Mary Magdalene that the official church had spent centuries trying to suppress. The church knew these texts existed. They had declared them dangerous. The question is, what was in them that was dangerous enough to bury in a desert and hope nobody ever found? The Nag Hammadi Library. Before we go into what these texts say, understand what they are. These are not first-hand accounts. Most were written in the 2nd century, decades after the events they described. They were not included in the Bible because the early church councils judged them outside the mainstream of apostolic teaching. But what they reveal is arguably as important as what they record, because across multiple independent texts, written by different communities, at different times, the same conflict keeps appearing. Mary Magdalene versus Peter. The Gospel of Mary, discovered in Cairo in 1896, shows the disciples after the resurrection, frightened and paralyzed. They don't know what to do. They're afraid. And it is Mary who stands up, who steadies them, who shares a teaching she received directly from Jesus, a vision about the soul, about what comes after death. The disciples listen. They take her seriously, until 2 of them don't. Andrew says he doesn't believe Jesus would have shared such teachings with a woman. And then Peter goes further. He asks whether Jesus really spoke privately with a woman, in preference to them. A disciple named Levi defends her. He tells Peter, "You have always been hot-tempered. If Jesus considered her worthy, who are you to reject her?" Now, this same tension appears in the Gospel of Thomas. It appears in the Pistis Sophia. 3 completely separate texts, different communities, different centuries, when the same conflict appears across multiple independent sources. That is not coincidence. That is historical memory. What these texts are preserving is a genuine rivalry at the heart of early Christianity, a rivalry between 2 visions of who should lead the movement. Jesus left behind Peter, who became the foundation of the institutional church, the rock on which Rome was built, and Mary Magdalene, who was commissioned by the risen Christ himself before Peter even knew he was alive. One of them won. The other was declared a prostitute 500 years later by a pope who never met her, in a single sermon on a random Sunday morning in Rome in the year 591 AD. And that single sermon destroyed her legacy for 14 centuries. But before we get to that, we need to follow her into the 30 years of silence. Because while the church in Rome was building its power structure, Mary Magdalene, according to 2 ancient traditions from opposite ends of the known world, was doing something that neither tradition has ever fully been able to explain. If you're just now learning that the church spent 1400 years calling this woman a prostitute based on one sermon, and you have never shared a video like this, now is the time. 30,000 women were locked in institutions built on that lie. Share this video. Make sure one more person hears the truth today. 2 traditions, 2 completely different stories about where she went. Both of them ancient, both of them detailed, both of them, in different ways, may contain a kernel of truth. The Eastern Orthodox Church has never confused Mary Magdalene with the sinful woman of Luke chapter 7. Not once, not for a single century. In the Orthodox tradition, she traveled to Ephesus, one of the great cities of the Roman Empire, with the Apostle John and the Virgin Mary. This makes historical sense. At the crucifixion, Jesus entrusted his mother to the care of the beloved disciple. Ancient tradition places John in Ephesus. If John went to Ephesus, and the Gospel of John suggests the women in John were closely connected, then Mary Magdalene's presence there is historically plausible. Ephesus was not a small city. Estimates place its population between 200,000 and 250,000 people. The Library of Celsus, a theater that seated 25,000. Marble streets lined with columns. This was the Roman world's equivalent of New York, and according to Orthodox tradition, Mary Magdalene preached in it. She didn't retire. She didn't disappear. She proclaimed the resurrection to anyone who would listen in one of the most powerful cities on earth. The Orthodox Church gives her the title, Isa Apostolos, equal to the apostles. Only a handful of figures in 2,000 years of Christian history have ever received that title. But then she did something that, according to the Eastern tradition, was either the most courageous act of her entire life or the most dangerous. She went to Rome. She walked into the court of the Emperor Tiberius himself, and she held up an egg. She told the emperor that Jesus Christ had risen from the dead. Tiberius laughed. He said a man rising from the dead was as likely as the egg in her hand, turning red. According to the legend, the egg in her hand turned bright red immediately, whether or not you believe that happened. Here is what is undeniably true. That story became the foundation of one of the most widespread traditions in Eastern Christianity. The red eggs you see at every Orthodox Easter celebration trace their origin directly to Mary Magdalene and that moment before the Roman emperor, a tradition documented for over 1,000 years. The next time you see a red Easter egg, you're looking at her. The Eastern tradition holds that she eventually died in Ephesus and was buried there. Her relics were transferred to Constantinople in 886 AD under Emperor Leo VI. The monastery of Simonos Petra on Mount Athos claims to possess her incorrupt left hand, the very hand, the monks say, that touched the risen Christ in the garden. Now here is where the story takes a turn that even most serious scholars find difficult to fully explain, because the Western tradition, the Catholic tradition, says she didn't go east, she went west, in a boat, without oars, without sails, without food or water, set adrift on the Mediterranean Sea by people who wanted her to die, and instead of drowning, she landed on the south coast of France. According to this tradition, after the persecution of Christians in a holy land, a group of early followers were placed in a boat and cast out to sea. Mary Magdalene, her sister Martha, her brother Lazarus, several others. The Mediterranean is not a forgiving body of water. Ancient sailors feared it. Storms appear without warning. By any practical measurement, this journey should have been fatal. The boat landed near a place, Naucalde Sainte-Marie de la Mer. The name means Holy Marys of the Sea. The town still celebrates this arrival every single year. According to the legend, the group split up to evangelize. Lazarus went to Marseille and became its first bishop. Martha went to Tarascon, and Mary Magdalene went deep into the south of France, preached, converted entire communities, and then withdrew to a cave high in the mountains of Provence, called the Saint Baume, 1,000 meters up in a limestone cliff, surrounded by ancient forest, and according to the tradition, she stayed there for 30 years, alone, no food, no water, sustained, they say, by angels who lifted her up 7 times each day to hear the music of heaven. Her clothes eventually wore away. She was covered only by her long hair. Now, let us be clear about the historical evidence for this story. The earliest written accounts of Mary Magdalene in France appear in the 11th century, roughly 1,000 years after she lived. There is no early Christian community in Gaul that mentions her. No archaeological evidence. That dates before the Middle Ages. But here is what is historically undeniable. The legend became so powerful that 2 separate regions of France went to war over her bones. The Abbey of Vézelay claimed her relics. From the 11th century onward, the claim made Vézelay one of the most important pilgrimage sites in all of Europe. Kings came. The Third Crusade was launched from there in 1190. Then in 1279, the Count of Provence announced that the true relics of Mary Magdalene had been found in his region. 2 regions fighting over the bones of a woman who lived 1,000 years before them. The dispute went all the way to the Pope. In 1295, Pope Boniface VIII declared the Provence relics authentic. The Basilica at Saint Maximin la Saint Baume became one of the most important churches in France. The skull believed to be hers is kept in a golden reliquary in the crypt. Pilgrims still line up to see it today. What this tells us is not whether she was in France. What it tells us is this. This woman was so significant, so spiritually powerful, so important to the memory of early Christianity, that centuries after her death, the most powerful institutions in the world fought over the right to claim her. But while France was building shrines to her, Rome was quietly doing something else. In 1969, the Catholic Church changed something in its liturgical calendar. Most Catholics still don't know what happened, and what they changed revealed a cover-up that had lasted 1,400 years. It started with one sermon. Sunday morning, Home 591 AD, Pope Gregory I stood before his congregation and merged 3 separate women from the Gospels into one person, the unnamed sinful woman of Luke chapter 7, who wept at Jesus' feet, Mary of Bethany, the sister of Lazarus, and Mary Magdalene, the first witness of the resurrection. He declared that all 3 were the same woman, and he declared that the sin of Luke chapter 7 was sexual immorality. In one sermon, one morning, the woman who announced the resurrection became a reformed prostitute. The Eastern Church never accepted this. They always kept the women distinct. Some Protestant scholars challenged it as early as 1517. But in the West, the label stuck for 1,400 years. In 1969, the Catholic Church quietly revised its calendar. The Feast of Mary Magdalene on July 22nd no longer identified her with the sinful woman or Mary of Bethany. After nearly 14 centuries, they corrected the error so quietly that most Catholics never heard about it. But the bigger correction came in June 2016. Pope Francis elevated Mary Magdalene's feast day from a memorial to a feast, the same level given to Peter, Paul, James, and John. The official decree called her explicitly the apostle to the apostles. The title first used by the Church Father Hippolytus in the 3rd century, now officially endorsed by the Vatican, 14 centuries late, and the consequences of those 14 centuries were not abstract. They were real, they were devastating, and they were named after her. The Magdalene laundries, institutions across Ireland and Britain, where women, deemed immoral by society, were locked away, forced to do unpaid labor, stripped of their names, and in many cases, never seen again, named after a woman who was never a prostitute. An estimated 30,000 women passed through the Irish Magdalene laundries alone. The last one did not close until 1996. In 2013, the Irish government formally apologized for the state's role in those institutions. Many of the women buried there still lie in unmarked graves. A single sermon, 591 AD, changed by a line in a liturgical calendar. In 1969, and between those two dates, 14 centuries of real women paying the price for a lie told about a dead one. She ran to tell people the truth when nobody believed her. She did it when Peter doubted her. She did it when Andrew dismissed her. She did it when the whole world called her something she wasn't. The least you can do is share this video with one person who still believes the myth. 30,000 women were silenced. You don't have to be, and if you're the kind of person who stayed for 30 minutes to hear a story this important, subscribe, because there are dozens of lies hidden in the pages of Scripture that nobody is telling, and we are telling them. We started this story with a woman walking to a tomb at dawn. No plan, no escort, no reason to hope, just spices in her hands, and love with nowhere else to go. She found an empty tomb. She found a risen Christ. She was given a mission, and for 30 years, whether she preached in Ephesus, or walked the mountains of France, or did something history never recorded, she carried that moment, the moment he said her name, and nothing, not Peter's doubt, not Andrew's dismissal, not Gregory's sermon, not 14 centuries of slander, could take it from her. Here are the 4 questions this story demands you answer. Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Theory 1. Do you believe she went to Ephesus and preached across the Eastern Mediterranean, equal to the apostles? Theory 2. Do you believe she crossed to France and spent 30 years alone in that cave, sustained by something beyond explanation? Theory 3. Do you believe the rivalry between Peter and Mary was real and that the church suppressed her because she was too powerful to be controlled? Theory 4. Do you believe the real Mary Magdalene, the wealthy, healed, courageous woman who stayed at the cross when the apostles ran, is the most important figure in the New Testament that nobody has ever properly taught? Tell me which one, or tell me all 4, because this conversation is 2,000 years overdue. I have seen the Lord. For words, the first Christian testimony, spoken by a woman, the world tried to silence, misidentify, and forget. And yet, here we are, 2,000 years later, still telling her story,